So I saw the film and it was a lot of fun to watch. Um, how long did it take you to make this film? Like from the moment, like when did you know you wanted to create this film?
So I read a book in 2012 called The Science of Female Sexual Desire, What Do Women Want, by
Mhm.
a journalist named Daniel Bergner. And after reading the book, he's a really good journalist. And he'd gone around the country in Canada and interviewed scientists who were studying um, women's sex drive, their sexual desire, in all kinds of different ways, right? And the end of the whole upshot of the book was women have as robust a sex drive as men. There's simply lies about it to reinforce patriarchal structures. So that, as a filmmaker, is what interested me. I wasn't interested in making a film about the science of female sexual desire, rather about all of the things that get in the way of women having agency over that desire, whatever that desire is. So that was back, I think, in 2012. So it's been a long journey.
That is a long journey. When you were doing your research on this, towards the end of the film, I saw that you started including trans women as women in the show. But when you were doing your initial research, were you looking at the impact of trans women and cis women?
Well, it probably came, it took such a long time to do the research and to kind of conceptualize how I would make a film about this. So my approach changed. And at some point, I did have a conversation with a transgender woman and to sort of talk to her about maybe including her in the film and all of that. And I ended up making the decision not to include trans women in the film or trans men in the film because I can only understand the embodied experience of a cisgendered woman. And so when I make a film, I want to have some kind of authenticity from which to begin. And I felt that I was not the right filmmaker to make that film. And, we had talked about making a series and all kinds of other things. But at the end of the day, I really felt, and I still feel this way, that that's a film for someone else to make. And that I hope this film opens the possibility and it's starts a conversation and it's an invitation for others to come in and join that conversation.
Great. Was it challenging for you to get support to make the film and find people who are willing to be interviewed about these subjects?
it was it was not challenging to find people who wanted to be in the film at all. And um, all the four sort of so-called experts, we're not really, I don't treat them as experts, but Sophia T, Stacy, and Lisa Diamond were all very willing and generous with their time. And then finding the five women that I then focus on, kind of to look at like the impact that their research, the four women's research, is having on the lives of sort of everyday. It wasn't hard to find them either. I sent out a big kind of call to everybody I knew and said, please invite as many people as you know. I want them to be as diverse as possible. And I had them come to a meeting at my house and I told them about the film. And one of the very first things, there were probably 45 people in the room. And one of them said was, I'm so eager to have this conversation. So I ended up interviewing about 12 different women and choosing the five. And everyone was so generous with very incredibly personal stories and intimate parts of their life. And so that's what was surprising to me, is that I didn't have a hard time finding people at all who were willing to talk about this.
That's amazing. The parts in the movie when you were in the sex toy store, how did that go? Was it easy to get permission to go in and find the type of sex toy store that you wanted to be in? Did you go through a few different styles of them?
So I think I was recommended by a couple people to the sex store Taboo Taboo, and
Yeah.
I liked the manager. I don't know if she was the owner or not, and I told her what we were doing, and she was very willing to, participate and all of that, and no, she was completely open to it. A couple of the women in my film had gone to workshops there, and so it's sort of a part of the fabric of the city of Chicago. So I didn't have any problem whatsoever. We had to make sure we protected people's privacy when we were filming because I didn't want her to have to close her store. And so we just had to kind of work around those issues, right? And so, no, it was really easy.
I loved seeing that part. It's so nice to see someone else running a store so similarly, sharing the information educational piece. That was just nice to see.
Yeah.
What is some of your hopes that your film will do to shift our culture
Well,
or our society?
I hope the film has given people language to talk about something we all experience. I hope the film has opened up a conversation around how we're made to feel ashamed about our desire, ashamed about our bodies, like felt we're made to feel like we can't even say the word clitoris. When I started making this film, I can't tell you how many women said to me, I can't say that word. And frankly, until I started the film, I used to joke that I probably hadn't used the word clitoris in a complete sentence in my entire life, right? So I really wanted the film to provide a way for people to come watch it and then come away with what they needed to be able to feel more comfortable in their bodies, around feeling safe in their bodies, and not ashamed of their bodies or ashamed of their desire, and to look at it as a really important part of our humanity. Our sexual desire is a part of our humanity, and the choices we make around it are some of the most intimate choices we make as human beings. And those choices, and I feel really strongly about this, shouldn't be criminalized or criminalized or controlled in any way. And so I wanted people to feel free to be able to talk about it and act on it and have the knowledge of their bodies that a lot of us didn't have, right, for a very long time.
Yeah.
So I'm just hoping people take away from this film whatever it is they need.
Have you seen any growth or shifts within yourself or within your immediate friend circles being impacted by you focusing on this and making the film?
Well, the first thing that happened to me is when I went to meet Sophia Wallace in 2013 and went to her art studio, and she was showing me all her work. She also showed me in a textbook an anatomically correct clip, and that was my kind of what the fuck moment. I had no idea I had this organ on my body that looked like that, and I'm a pretty educated with it woman, right? And I felt, two things. One, I was surprised, then I was appalled, and then I felt sad because my not knowing about it meant that I didn't talk to my own daughter about it. And I think she was maybe in college at that point. And so what I realized is how easily the lack of knowledge gets passed on generationally, right? So my mother didn't talk to me about it. So I didn't talk to my daughter. I didn't even know about it, right? I mean, I knew about the clitoris, but I didn't know it was this huge organ, right? So that was the first thing that struck me. And then I decided that this was just going to be something I talked about all the time. And so probably to the, chagrin of a lot of my friends, I have no filter about it, and I will talk to anybody about it, including my son. And so we've had a conversation about it as well. And for me, it's really at this age, I'm not young, I've come to realize the connection between being denied the truth about our bodies and where our pleasure comes from is a way of disconnecting you from power, both politically and personally. So imagine if we didn't teach boys about their penis or any of that stuff. Imagine if we didn't do that. Like, right? That's
No, Amy.
absurd.
Yes.
Okay, right? It's absurd. And yet that is the standard that cisgendered women have to put up with, that their anatomy doesn't meet the bar for truth in college level textbooks. It shouldn't even be college level textbooks. It should be whatever. Anatomy is truth. So it should be readily gettable, right?
Very.
So I think that was pretty appalling to me, that if you want this information, you have to work hard to get it, when it's simply information about bodies, right? And how they work. And so that to me was, and still remains, like a pretty appalling thing, that in 2020, the word clitoris isn't said a lot. It's considered pornographic. Correct information about the clitoris, you got to kind of look for it. women still go to gynecologists and no one mentions the clitoris. The doctor doesn't mention it. Women who have babies aren't told it'll be just fine once they have a baby. They shouldn't worry about it. So none of those conversations take place. And that's appalling, because that just tells you what medicine, society, religion, you name it, thinks about women's pleasure. That it's kind of, it can, yeah, it's okay, but like if something happens to it, it's not so bad. Well, that's absurd, right? So I think that's kind of what's happened to me. I've become very radicalized in that way, with just tired of the conversation being one way about men's pleasure.
Nice. I hope your film goes far and wide. Watching it felt so good to me. A lot of your activism is similar to mine. And every day in here, we have these women, between the ages of 20 and 85. And I'll have these women in their 80s. They're like, well, I'm just abnormal. I'm like, how are you abnormal? They're like, I like external stimulation. I'm like, no, that's not abnormal. And it's heartbreaking. And so
It's
I
very
love,
heartbreaking.
yeah.
Think about how when way back when time you might have had sex with somebody, if it was heteronormative sex, it wasn't much fun. And so then women are immediately, heterosexual women are immediately made to feel like there's something wrong with them. Well, asking women to climax during heteronormative sex is like asking a man to climax if somebody touches his elbow. It's not, for most of us, gonna happen. And yet that lie is what we live with. And then we walk around feeling bad about ourselves. And then everybody wonders why women don't care about sex. Because, yeah, there are women who say, I don't think I've ever had an orgasm, and they're not young. So to me, it's denying half the population of the world the right to experience pleasure in their body. And that, Sophia Wallace says that it's a human right. I mean, and I think she's correct, right? It's a way of feeling safe in your body and having agency over your body and owning the knowledge of it. And no one should take that away, although it's being taken away as we speak.
Okay, well, a little too literal right now, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Who do you hope will be most impacted by your film? And when I ask that, I mean, not just, yes, hoping everyday women will watch this and feel impacted, but are you hoping to get through to sex educators, elementary schools, high schools, doctors? Do you have like a dream or a hope with that?
Absolutely. I'm going for a cultural sea change here. I want the word clitoris to be easily used in polite conversation wherever you are. I want everybody who has one to know they have one and what it's for. And part of the plan is a campaign that I'm calling #TellHerTheTruth. I'd love for girls entering their freshman year in high school to know this. I'd love for girls who are 5 years old to know this, right? And I would really like, and I know this is like huge, this is not going to happen, but I would really like sex education not to be something that promotes the notion of shame, right?
Yes.
Especially for girls who learn about it and learn about sex without any mention of the clitoris. So that to me is, we metaphorically cut it out of women's bodies in this country, right? And we just think that's okay. So I would hope that this film will initiate a conversation that invites everyone into that conversation. And, because it's what Sophia Wallace's law says, all bodies are entitled to the pleasure they're capable of. Not just one kind of body,
Nice.
All bodies, right?
And are you having any difficulty getting funding or showing your film or dealing with your Facebook page or Instagram because of the content?
Well, it's interesting. Facebook and I think Instagram don't recognize the word clitoracy, right? So
Nice.
I get away with it all the time. We did have a very hard time funding the film. My funders ended up we had a Kickstarter campaign, but my two primary funders ended up being men. One has a foundation and the other was an investor. And women were afraid of this film, were afraid to pitch it to their bosses at other places. And so I got turned down everywhere. And the film has been a huge hit on the festival circuit, and people of all ages want to see it from 12 to 80. And so I know that it's got a broad audience, but I can't sell it yet. I haven't been able to sell it. So we'll see if 2021 changes things. You know, I got an email from an 80-year-old man who said, I've been married to the same woman for 50 years. I thought I knew everything about women. I watched your film. I realized I don't. I really love your new kind of feminism. And so that to me is like, that's great, right? Because I'm not just preaching to, you know, cisgendered women or women born female. I'm preaching to all of humanity, right? When you come together with somebody, it should be a mutually beneficial and pleasurable experience for both, or however many parties you happen to come together with, right? So, and that just seems to be a really simple thing, but who knows?
I wish you so much luck with it. I love what you're
Thank you.
doing. You know, a lot of what you do is what gets me out of bed during the day to open my stores on days I don't always feel like it. It's creating those shifts for people to normalize conversations around our sex goals or sexual health or just talking about it. And I feel the change I get to make in my store is so much smaller than the potential that your movie has to make. So I'm very hopeful for your success with getting this out there.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure talking with you.